sound, you need to schedule an appointment over in the Physical Science Center. There's a sign-up sheet for that. You go over there. It should be right there on the front desk, but you need someone to approve that. Don't just walk in there and sign your name. They won't give you the appointment unless they check off on that. So just make sure there's an attendant there who checks off when you sign up. It's a half-hour-long appointment. It'll take you not the full half an hour, but you'll probably need most of that time to complete it. You have to watch the lab video first, otherwise you'll have no idea what's going on. I know some of you have been watching these every week for our normal labs, but this is one where you have to. So if you haven't been watching those, go to the OCCC homepage, and there's a link right up on top to labs and centers, and pick on the Physical Science Center link there, and there'll be a lab videos link right there on that front page. That's lab video 14. If you see right here on the front, it says the approximate lab time is 45 minutes. As I said, we're going to give you half an hour appointments for that. That should be enough to do the experiment as long as you watch the video. You'll want to prepare your data tables and what you need to record measurements on before you go in there. You'll have plenty of time to finish it up, I think, in half an hour. The 10-hour time there for the preparation of your report really just depends on how long it takes you to write. I know some of us sit at this computer screen and stare and wait for the words to come out. It could take you 10 hours if you're not comfortable writing. If you're comfortable writing, this won't take you that long. But you're going to have to spend some time doing analysis in the math with your data, which is very complicated. You'll have to spend some time preparing a graph. I think you can account probably for at least 5 hours. Maybe not the full 10, but you're going to need to spend more time definitely than a normal lab report doing this here. I don't have a page requirement on this for how long it's going to be. This usually ends up being a few solid pages of text of your writing for the report, but you end up turning in anywhere from 5 to 10 pages when you attach on a graph, the appendix which has your data sheets, calculations, and some other things. Of actual writing though, you just need to make sure you answer and do everything that we tell you to do here in this sheet I've given you. That can't be done in one page. It doesn't need 10 full pages of text either, but it's usually in that range. I think usually at least a few pages to answer everything that I've asked you for here. You aren't typing it in a certain format of MLA or APA. You should type it single-spaced. As I said, there's no page requirement, so don't worry about trying to make it a certain length, but it should, when I'm saying a few pages, I'm meaning a few pages single-spaced. We'll talk about the format here, which is on the last couple pages here in a minute. You need to read through all this stuff. As I said, there's plenty of information here, things that we're asking you to do. The video walks you right through it. You should be taking notes while you're watching the video. Let me make one note. If you flip to the third page, you can remember from the third page where on the top here it says part 2. Number 1 says there in the second sentence to use 344 as the accepted speed of sound in air. Somewhere in the video, I forget, I don't have a time marker for that, he says 334 instead of 343, and here we say 344. 343 or 344 is the speed of sound at about room temperature. But at one point in the video, I think he does say 334, just incorrectly, so don't write down that number. The accepted value for the speed of sound is 344, that's what you can use. In class, or in the book, it's going to end up where we actually use 343 more often than 344, just because that's what it says in your problems, but essentially the same thing. Just don't use 334, which he does say, I think, at one moment. And I'm pretty sure he corrects himself on it later on, or he says it the right way, but if you're catching that here, you can say 334 instead of 343. One more thing about the speed of sound there. I told you to read sections 14.1 and 2 in your book. We'll go over some of these things in class, but we don't go into sound into that much detail. The temperature dependence of the speed of sound in air, we may not even use that equation, but there is an equation for it in that section there. I'll just write it down for you here. The speed of sound is 331 plus 0.6 times the temperature in degrees Celsius here. Do your iPhones have thermometers on them? They don't? They have everything else but that? That's surprising. I didn't know if there was one on there or not. So you may not be able to take the temperature easily, but if you wanted to, you can figure out what the exact temperature in that room was. or you can take the temperature in that room, and you can figure out exactly what your speed of sound should be. And when it's asking you here, is that 344, or to use 344, and is it the true value? You can find the exact value by doing this if you have the temperature in that room.
Is that 6 TC?
0.6,
0.6.
0.6. Those couple of sections in your book are just some background on sound that we may not have gotten to yet. You can start doing your experiment as soon as this week or next week. You can do this without any knowledge from what we're doing in class. And so really, if you watch the video, you'll be able to complete the experiment. This is due, I think I wrote down, I forgot the date, but it's that Thursday after Thanksgiving. We're going to take a test the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And that Tuesday we'll have makeup labs. If you need to make up any, most of you completed all the labs, so there probably won't be many of you there. But with that said, if there's nobody who needs to make up a lab, which I think there's going to be some people who do, I'll decide if I'm going to give you extra time or not on the test. It's not going to be as much extra time as we had in the last two, but I might be able to give you a little bit extra, and we might start those makeup labs just a little bit late that day. But I'll figure that out when we get to that week. But we're going to have that test the Tuesday before. Over the Thanksgiving break, I test you before, kind of intending that you're not going to do anything over the break. You don't really have any homework over the week, but you do have this lab report. It's not due the Tuesday after, it's due the Thursday after, so you probably have enough time to wait and enjoy your break. Do it when you get back maybe, or do it after the break. But you really don't want to wait until the last minute and do the experiment the week after Thanksgiving. You should really try to set this up, do the experiment before. If you have some free time over the break and you want to get it done, that'd be great. You can bring it by me earlier on that week when we get back from Thanksgiving. I can look it over for you, tell you if you're missing something. I won't usually read the whole thing and correct it all for you ahead of time, but I can usually look quickly and see what you're missing if you're missing something. Okay? So just start scheduling your appointments for that. I'll try to get that done before we leave for break. Okay. So I'll let you guys read through all the sections up here for the purpose and all that. Let's flip back to those last couple of pages. The report must be typed. It should be obvious, but every once in a while I get a couple who try to turn that in with their scratch handwriting. Type your report, and the format that's on here is the format I'm having you follow. This is a pretty standard format for writing technical papers or science papers, but this is the one for this class or on this sheet right here. You'll do things a little bit differently in other classes. I want you to follow these directions here and don't worry about what you've done in other classes. Just follow these directions. When you write this up, it should have a cover sheet. It should have all these sections in there. The cover sheet would be a separate page. The purpose is given to you on page 1 here. It says you can expand on that a little bit, write more in your purpose section if you want to, but basically just that part there with what the purpose of the experiment is. When you write up a science paper like this and you have all these different sections, you should write your paper, and when you write this, you'll actually title it with a section for the purpose, for the apparatus, for the method, and you'll include those headings in your paper. So they're here, you don't need to underline them and put them written here with a colon. Usually if you've seen like a science journal, if you've read these before, it's usually just written in bold and then written down below with the text. But you'll just have that there and then write your text down below that. Don't underline it like we have here with the colon, which is just kind of our directions here for these parts. So you'll list all these, or you'll just write your headings there for all the sections. This is written in paragraph form for almost all of it, but there's a couple parts where you don't have to write complete sentences and paragraphs. One thing there where you are referring to your apparatus, that's one section where you don't really need to write in paragraph form because there's not much to write there. You're just listing what the apparatus and the equipment that you're using is there. So that's one section where it is just a list. Make sure, like it says here, you must give the range and also the least count for all measuring devices. It also says on here to include the manufacturer and model number of the device that you're using. You're not writing a list of instructions for somebody else to complete, but whenever you're doing an experiment, someone should be able to reproduce your experiment, so they need to know what that equipment is and exactly what was used during that. So that's why you're listing all those things. And these are things here that are spelled out for you clearly in the lab. The biggest point deductions that I really make are for when people just don't follow directions. And if there are things in here that I'm asking you for, or a certain kind of writing that I'm asking for here, if you don't do it, I'm taking off points for that. Okay? Your numbers will work out. You'll measure a speed of sound that should be pretty close to the 343. So you're going to know if you have your data right, you've done your calculations correct. Your percent error should be pretty small, and you'll know that you've done the experiment right. Here, you just need to answer all the questions and basically do what we're telling you here. This is going to be 25 or 30 points. I haven't decided yet exactly, but it's always about 25 or 30 points, which carries the weight of about 3 other normal lab reports. So more than just a normal report, but not like a whole test or anything. This is all still just going into the 12.5% of your grade for labs. So this is really just counting like 3 labs. If anybody has a high A in this class, I've had people who just blow this assignment off and take the hit, and it doesn't really affect your grade that much. It's not going to, at this point, most of you have been turning all your labs in, getting anywhere from 7 to 10 on most of your labs, so hopefully you all have averages of probably 80 to 90% somewhere on your labs. All this can really do is hurt you. If you get an A on this, you'll keep your A in lab. If you do less than what you've been doing on all your other lab reports, then it might drop you down just a little bit. But you have so many other reports in there already, like 9 or 10 labs that we've done. There's 100 points there, there's about 30 points here. So it's important, but I don't want you to feel like there's a ton of pressure. I have people sometimes who really stress out about writing, and I'm not saying don't do it, but just start working on it ahead of time and get it done. But if it's not your best work of the semester, it usually won't kill you. But if you're on the border, which some of you are, then give me your best work. Okay, then give me your best work.